Alright guys, today we're going to be covering dividing by a monomial. Yesterday you learned how to do multiplying. Okay, so we've done adding, subtracting, multiplying, and now we're going to finish up on all the operations of polynomials, which is dividing by a monomial. We should know that when we say a monomial, it's only a one-term thing. You don't do anything more than that in Algebra 1. Okay, so that'll be nice to know that we won't make it any harder. But what we're learning today is going to come into play in a lot of things that we will be doing later on in the next section, still in this unit. But that'll be coming in, this lesson right now will be coming into play when we talk about factoring. Okay, so let's make sure that we're paying attention. This is a skill that you will need to know in the next section, so this is not going anywhere, unfortunately. Okay, so let's go over some basic things like always. How will you be seeing this type of stuff? Okay, I think it's important that you understand there's a couple ways that you will probably be introduced to this, and it's just the same thing, just written differently. Okay, so here's the first way. Literally, we're going to be using like the division sign, old school, okay? And it looks like something like this. Here's a good example. Okay, so that 2x squared plus 4x divided by 2x. Okay, I particularly don't like this, how it's set up, and I'll show you later on how I like to write it. It's up to you, okay? It's just a vision thing, okay? Another way that you will probably see it is something like this, where you have a polynomial on the top divided by a monomial, okay? And here's an example right here, where it's 4y to the 4th power minus 3y to the 2nd power divided by y to the 3rd power, okay? Same thing. I mean, both of these are the same thing. You're dividing by a monomial. There's no adding or subtracting there. It's only one term. Just looks a little bit different. Okay, so that's one thing that you needed to know. The next thing that you're going to have to recall, because we've done this way, I say probably the first unit that we did, which was exponent rules. Okay, so I'm gonna revisit it to make sure that we remember. Okay, and one of the exponent rules is about dividing that we definitely need to know. So let's go through that. Okay, so what is the exponent rule about dividing? Okay, you're going to subtract the top exponent by the bottom exponent. Can that be like x squared divided by a y squared? No. The important thing here, it has to be the same base. So they both would have to be x's. Okay, so that's the rule that we're going to be using today. Keep that in mind, okay? Another thing I wanted to put in here, we're going to do it down in the examples, but what if you subtract and then you get a negative number? Are we allowed to have negative exponents ever? Right now in Algebra 1, no. We don't like that. So remember, whenever you have a negative exponent, you either need to put it into the denominator or put it into the numerator. And I'll show you an example of what that means, okay? And maybe I have an easier way that might help you. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's revisit this concept of subtracting and dividing exponents. Okay, so we have the first example here, little example, is 4x squared divided by 2x. Okay, a couple things going on here. Do you think we're going to be subtracting this 4 minus 2? Technically, it would work out. Doesn't always work out that nicely. But no, okay, the big numbers, even when we start our real examples, the big numbers you just divide like normal. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So what is 4 divided by 2? We get 2. Okay, the next thing that you see is your exponents. Now, are these same bases, x and x? Absolutely. We're good to go. We can divide these. So it says from top to bottom. So 2 minus what? What's this exponent here? 1. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So that means that there is an x to the 1st power left over. Okay, right now this x to the 1st power is technically in the numerator. Remember, you can make anything into a fraction. Okay, so far we didn't have a negative exponent. Everything looks good. You could write your answer like this. You could have written your answer like this. They're both the same. Okay, so that's something a little practice problem there. All right, well, let's go back and look at this one. This one's a little bit harder. I threw in an extra variable even too. You're going to see that on a couple examples. So, okay, big numbers. Does the big numbers apply to the exponent rules? No. So you just divide or simplify, in this case, your big numbers. Okay, can 3 and 6 get simplified? 3 divided by 6. Sure, 3 can go into both the top and the bottom. So we're left with 1 over 3. Okay. All right, so the big numbers are done. Now, do we have any like bases? Sure, we have these x's right here. Can we combine them? Absolutely. Do we go from bottom to top? No, top to bottom. So what is 3 minus 5? 3 minus 5 is going to be a negative 3. I'm just going to put it at the top. I like to put everything, that's how I mentally think, or it should be a 2, my bad. I always put it at the top, and then I can always switch it. Okay. How about this y? Can we do anything with that? No. So do you think we should put the y at the top? Well, no. If we're not going to touch it, how about we just leave it where it's at? A saying that I was pounding into my head, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, y wasn't touched or broken, so let's just leave it at the bottom. Okay? But what's wrong with this? You got it, that negative 2, that can't be there. So another way that we would rewrite it is we need to take this and put it to the bottom, and that turns it into a positive. Hopefully you guys remember how to do that. So we still have 1 over 3x squared y. And that would be our answer. Okay, another way of looking at this is whichever has the bigger exponent. Which one's bigger, 3 or 5? 5, right? Your answer is going to the bottom. Wherever the bigger exponent is located, that's where your answer is going to go after you subtract. So think about it like this. 3 minus 5 is technically negative 2. I just dropped the negative. Where should the 2 go? Should we put our x squared at the top or bottom? Well, we put it at the bottom because that's the bigger exponent. Okay, that's a little shortcut that a lot of my students kind of figure out once they practice this and all. So that might help you also. Okay? All right, so we went over the exponent rules. Right now, I'm going to erase this. If you didn't take notes, you know you can always rewind and go back. But I want to finish up with going over the steps that we're going to do to solve, and also just a quick review about terms and making sure you guys know what that all is all about. Okay? All right, so let me erase this real quick. Okay. Let's talk about terms real quick. I said dividing by a monomial. Remember, terms are separated by subtraction signs or addition signs. So a lot of our problems today are going to be trinomials. So what does that mean? Well, they're probably going to look something like this. Okay, plus x plus 4. I just made that up, okay? There's 3 different terms. Here's a term, and here's a term. That's just the review, just making sure you guys know that. Okay, separated by the adding or subtracting signs. And we will be dividing it by a monomial. So if I wanted to divide by x, this is just a monomial. So trinomial, monomial, okay, so making sure that everybody knows that. All right, so let's go ahead and now finish up with our steps. What are we going to do today? How are we going to organize our thoughts? Okay, so steps that I like to use are as follows. The first step that I'm going to do is, I'm going to put this as the first step, but you can kind of skip over it. I sometimes like to rewrite. And I'll show you what that means. I like to put my monomial underneath each term. Okay, and I'll show you what that looks like, but I like to rewrite it. The second thing that I do is, now you're going to be repeating these steps till you finish. But the first thing I like to do is go ahead and divide my large number, the bigger numbers, your constants or your coefficients. Okay. Okay, I said big numbers, but you know what I mean, the coefficients. Take care of that. That's easy, because there is no exponent rules with that. Okay. The third thing that I like to do is, now that I like to touch my exponents. Remember yesterday, when do you not touch exponents? Well, we don't touch exponents whenever we add and subtract. We only touch exponents when we multiply or divide. So today we're definitely going to be touching the exponents, okay, because there's division going on. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and divide our exponents. Okay, and remember when I say divide, we're technically subtracting from the top to the bottom. Okay, that's it. Now, will we have to repeat this? Absolutely. Depending on how many terms that we have, we may have to do 2 and 3, potentially 3, 4, how many times there might be. Divide, then take care of your exponents. Divide, take care of your exponents. But that's the basic steps that we're going to take today. Okay, so now that you know all of the background in dividing by a monomial, let's go ahead and dive into some examples.